The real guys, not the real guys.
What, Reyes?
They were in first force reconnaissance, scout platoon, Team 3. I was first force reconnaissance detachment.
Really knew?
Yeah.
What?
Hi, we're Team A.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. We're Team A. But before we start, I'd first like to just thank our instructor for just even teaching us, and also you guys who did your presentation ahead of time. We applaud you. But I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Brian Gatlin. I'm over here, a narrator. Also, I'll give our team members, we'll let them introduce themselves. First,
Lamar Balks.
Claudia? Carolyn Fierro?
Alex.
Charles.
Trina, okay.
Abortion. Should a woman have the right to have an abortion? Wow. On December 13th, 1971, there was a question that was argued before the U.S. Supreme Court. And this question was put in the form of Roe versus Wade. The decision was, could a woman terminate a pregnancy within the earlier months? But the state of Texas, Wade, Texas, had said, no, there's a law against that. She could not make a decision of having an abortion. In 1973, January 22nd, one of the most controversial cases was put up to the Supreme Court and a decision was given. The decision was handed down in favor of a single woman, which is named Roe. The constitutionality of the Texas law that made abortion illegal was overturned. This decision created what we know now as the abortion debate, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to debate the issue of abortion. But we're going to narrow it down a little bit. We're going to ask the question, should a woman have the right to choose an abortion? A couple questions I want you guys to think about. The first question I want you to think about, is it a life decision, or is it a decision on human life? Also, is it really a choice? Or does the fetus or the baby has a say-so in the matter? This is what we're going to debate. However you believe, what you stand on, we're going to debate that today. According to dictionary.com, let's define what abortion is. Abortion gives us three definitions. It says the termination of pregnancy after accompanied by, resulting in, or closely followed by the death of an embryo or a fetus. Also, it means arrested development, to stop the development, and as well as spontaneous expulsion of a human fetus during the first 12 weeks of the gestation. Tough word. But like I said, we're going to limit it down to a scope. And here's our scope. We're going to have what we call a pro-life side, and we're going to have a pro-choice side. In the pro-life side, or we call it the pro-life side, we're going to have Alex. He's going to argue from a point of view of pathos, which is more of a feeling, as we learned. As well, we're going to have Charles. He's going to argue from the point of view of logos. And then Chorito, she's going to argue from the point of view of ethos. Then on the pro-choice side, we're going to have Lamar. There you go, Lamar. He's going to argue from the pathos. And then Claudia, she's going to argue from the logos. And then as well, following with Carol on the ethos. After we present our arguments, each one of them from the pathos, logos, and ethos, we're going to rebuttal. But I want to put it to you today, as we're getting ready to debate, should a woman have the right to an abortion.
Understanding the current laws, we agree, pro-choice, that women should have the decision to choose the well-being of their self-health, whether physically or mentally. There are various reasons why women make the decision or choice to abort an unplanned or unwanted pregnancy. They may be career-driven, ectopic pregnancies, domestic violence, faulty contraceptives, being disowned by family, and even more serious sexual assault. And this is all according to Guttmacher Institute, and they are with the advancement of the sexual and reproductive health through research, policy, and public education. I would like to go on and read a story, share with you. I thought it was pretty interesting because when you're faced with the decision, what is really taken in consideration to make that choice? This is not my story. This is my story. All right. I had an abortion when I was 26 years old and studying for A-levels. I was all set to attend university and have been offered a conditional place at Oxford, so I was working really hard. Living with my parents, I had been feeling very ill and thought it must just be a general malaise. I mentioned it to my mother, and she asked whether I could be pregnant. I was pretty shocked as I had only been seeing my boyfriend for about 3 months, and even at that stage, it wasn't a great relationship. After a couple of pregnancy tests, the doctor had confirmed that my mother had been right. I remember immediately thinking, I'm not doing this. I was absolutely sure. That was weird because I had actually been quite anti-abortion before. I knew one woman who had had an abortion, and I had been quite disapproving. As soon as I knew that I was pregnant, my only thought was that this had to be over as soon as possible. I'm from South Africa, and there it is illegal to have an abortion. Even now, when I think about it, all these years later, I am overcome with relief and gratitude that I live in a country where it is my decision, not the state's, whether I can have children or not. In fact, I actually think that the abortion saved my life. If I hadn't had the option of a legal termination, I would have tried to do it myself, and if that hadn't worked and hadn't killed me, I'm fairly certain I would have killed myself. So this is just one example of what women go through. She is not the only woman who has dealt with or dealing with the circumstances on this caliber. Having a choice and making the right decision best for you is your privacy.
Now we hear from the logo's point of view, Claudia.
Okay, so I'm Claudia. Okay, I'm just going to give you a brief history. At the time the Constitution was adopted, abortions were openly advertised and commonly performed. In the mid to late 1800s, states passed laws that made abortion illegal. One reason, well, there's many reasons, but I'm just going to focus on this one. The reason is it became illegal was from the fear that newly arrived immigrant children would overtake the birth rate of Anglo-Saxon women. With that said, I'm going to give you my claim. If abortion, we now know that abortion is legal, right? Yeah. Okay, so if abortion became illegal again, the number of women seeking abortion will not decrease. The argument? Before abortion was legalized, women who needed to or choose to terminate their pregnancy or have an abortion were willing to take whatever actions necessary, including self-induced abortions or seek clandestine places where unskilled practitioners will perform the abortions, and the the practitioners will not have any skills in doing abortions, and this could cause serious consequences, including death. I'm going to quote two sources, but let me just give you a little detail about my sources. The National Abortion Federation, the NAF, is a professional association of abortion providers in North America. They have been practicing since 1977, and they believe, this is their mission, that women should be trusted to make private medical decisions in consultation with their healthcare providers or providers. I'm also going to use Planned Parenthood Federation of America, which is an organization that has existed for approximately 100 years. It is a trusted healthcare provider. They deliver vital reproductive health care, sex education, and information to millions of women, men, and young people worldwide. And yes, they do abortions. So according to the NAF, criminalization of abortion did not reduce the number of women who had abortions. In the years before Roe v. Wade, the estimates of illegal abortions ranged as high as 1.2 million per year between the 1800s and 1973. Many thousands of women were harmed as a result of illegal abortions. Many women die or suffer serious medical problems after attempting to self-induce their abortions or going to untrained practitioners who perform abortions with primitive methods or in unsanitary conditions. During this time, hospital emergency rooms staff treated thousands and thousands of women who either died or were suffering terrible effects of abortions provided without adequate skill and care. Now, Planned Parenthood, they estimated the estimates of the annual number of illegal abortions between the 1950s and 1960s range from 200,000 to 1.2 million.
Thank you, Darren. Also, we're going to add some credibility there, which is the ethos. Carol.
So on the credibility side of it is, in 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion concurrent with women's rights from the case of Roe versus Wade. This is the first time the U.S. Supreme Court acknowledged the constitutional rights to privacy. It was enough to encompass a woman's decision whether or not to terminate her pregnancy. This is from Roe versus Wade in 1973. Within these rulings, women had the choice of aborting the fetus, whether it was the moral thing to do or not, but it was the choice of these women's concerning bodies. Knowing how this decision may not have not been favorable in most minds, unlike a woman like Roe, a business career woman who was not prepared to continue with her pregnancy. Before her, it was not granted. Once the Supreme Court took the case and ruled in favor, Roe was not affected others after. Most instances, continued pregnancy gets categorized as single mothers, classified as single hand housewives, or mothers of poverty and account of pregnancy. This was quoted by Clarissa Pomeroy. So these constitutional rights have been used in the case of Roe versus Wade. The Ninth Amendment in the United States Constitution, which is part of the Bill of Rights, addresses rights of the people that are not specifically enumerated in the Constitution. The 14th Amendment, Equal Protection Clause, requires each state to provide equal rights under the law to all people with its jurisdiction. Now, I have credibility from a woman, an author. She wrote a book called Among Us Women by Joan Lerner, and this is her abortion argument. My recently published novel, Among Us Women, explores the opposing views of 3 women regarding abortion and their involvement in opening a women's health clinic in their town, where women get counseling, and if they want abortion, in addition to reasons women give, as you state in your article, is not wanted a deformed baby with demands on a family, another determination chosen by pro-life families in the book. One of the characters demands that her daughter marries rather than have an abortion. A second, having a problem becoming pregnant, rails against women who so callously abort when so many of us are desperate to have a baby. And the third woman has had an abortion with her lover, insists, but feels so guilty about doing so. I show no bias while revealing these personal confidences and their resolution, and without doing so in the novel, will say that my personal belief is whatever action a woman takes, it is the question that should up to her consequence. So there is one story that I picked out of there. Usually people think about, there's birth control pills. Why can't you just prevent it? Okay? And this is what happened to a 19-year-old young girl. She got pregnant using the IUD. She figured I cannot take birth control pills because I was getting much migraine. So she started using IUD. In this form of contraceptive, she still got pregnant. When she found out, her reaction was, I'm going to keep it. But when she told her mother, she advised her that it wasn't the best thing to do. Unfortunately, she still had to finish college, and she wouldn't be able to take care of the child financially. The father of the baby was younger than her, so he couldn't provide her with a child either. He couldn't provide for child care. So she felt pressured in some way, but it still was her decision, and she decided to terminate her pregnancy. So that's one of the stories that I picked out of the book that this lady wrote. So from there, we're going to.
Thank you, Claudia. Carol.
I called you Claudia.
Because I'm getting really excited about the other side of the argument. Now, you've heard the pro-choice side. Now it's time to hear the pro-life side. And we're going to start with Alex Bakos.
Legally, unfortunately, it states that the woman has the right to choose. But we believe that that shouldn't be the case. The woman should not have the burden of making that decision on her own. There are different factors, different influences she has. For example, the father of the potential baby, both families, the male side and the female side, making that factor of, is it the right thing to do? I'm going to tell you a story that has an example of that. There was a Hispanic 17-year-old female that has gotten pregnant but isn't ready to have a baby at this time because she's finishing high school and wants to go to college. She wants to pursue a career in fashion, and she believes the baby will prevent her from living her dream. She doesn't have a relationship with the baby's father anymore, so he's out of the picture. She thinks the only way out is to have an abortion. Once she told her family about her situation, her parents were livid, and when she told them the plan she had, the father just was irate and refused to talk to her anymore. So the mother kind of helped her and guided the situation and told her, you don't need to go that route. You have different options. The first option she suggested was to have the baby and provide for it and raise it as its own. And another option was to have the baby and give it for adoption if she feels she's not ready at this time. The last option was to have the baby and to have the mother offer to raise it as her own. And then lastly, she said that the mother's sister, so her aunt, is willing to take on the baby because she is unable to have kids. So that would be an option for them. After she went through these options, she had to realize that what was best for her and the baby. After discussing it with her family and going over the different situations and scenarios in her head, she believed that she wasn't ready. She wasn't ready for that burden. But she also had to focus on what her family's beliefs and what her family wanted, because that's ultimately what she was raised upon and what things have been in her life and in tradition of her family and everything like that. And of course, the influence of her parents had a big factor on that. As she grew up and realized that there are plenty of people who are in the same situation as her and face the same situation as other stories you've heard, so she realized that why not help someone else who doesn't have that privilege of giving birth and raising a family? Why not give them that option of having a baby? And then she went with that. Thank you.
Now we're going to hear the logos of it. Charles.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, so we've heard a lot of good arguments up here so far. As he was saying, I'm going to discuss the logo side of this. And I just ask you as the audience to just keep your mind open and evaluate and listen to everything I got to say, logically. All right? I just want to start off by saying that the U.S. laws are very clear on consequence of intentionally taking a human life. It is called murder. According to FindLaw.com, first-degree murder is in most states defined as an unlawful killing. That is both willful and premeditated, meaning that it was committed after planning or laying in wait for the victim. Planned Parenthood is the nation's leading sexual and reproductive health care provider and advocate. One of their services is abortion for adults and parents of young adults. They counsel adults on the decision of abortion and then provide it if the choice is just that. According to FindLaw.com, an accomplice is one who intentionally and voluntarily participates with another in a crime by encouraging or assisting in the commission of the crime or by failing to prevent it, though under a duty to do so. It is scientific fact that by the 9th and 10th weeks of pregnancy, the preborn child sucks their thumbs, turns somersaults, jumps, squints to close out light, frowns, swallows, and moves their tongues while in the womb of the mother. The 9th and 10th weeks are the highest numbers of abortions happening with women following the completion of their cycles. The most common method of abortion at this period is called suction aspiration. Now, according to abortion methods, suction aspiration is where they apply a general or local anesthesia to the mother and her cervix is quickly dilated. A suction curette, which is a hollow tube with a knife-edge tip, is inserted into the womb. Now think about this. This is a tube with a knife on the end of it that's being inserted into her womb. This instrument is then connected to a vacuum machine by a transparent tube. This vacuum suction is 20 times more powerful than a household vacuum cleaner. It tears the fetus and placenta into small pieces, which are then sucked through the tube into a bottle and discarded. Is abortion legal murder? Only you guys can decide that. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Charlie?
So most of us are familiar with the Laci Peterson case, right? It's about the murder of a mother and an unborn child. And it got a lot of publicity. But before this case, the death of an unborn victim would not result in a homicide. If something were to happen to the expected mother and it caused the loss of the child, then it would only be counted as one. If both of them died, then it would only be counted as one. The child would not be counted as a life. But in 2004, President George W. Bush signed into law the Unborn Victims Act of 2004. Before this act, the loss of an unborn child due to violence against women was not a crime. Before this act, there would have been only one life, one victim, and one offense. This law, also known as the Laci and Connors Law, acknowledges that in crimes against expectant mothers, there are 2 victims, 2 lives, and 2 crimes. The bill defines an unborn child as a Homo sapien at any stage of development in the womb. So it can be from fertilization all the way until birth. There are currently 38 states that have fetal homicide laws. These laws protect unborn children and mothers. According to the National Conference of State Legislators, 33 of these states have laws that apply to the early stages of pregnancy, A few states define the unborn child as an individual of the human species from fertilization until birth. So they consider, even from the moment of conception, it is alive. It is an individual. So if homicide is the killing of another human being, isn't abortion killing another human being? The rights of the mother should end at another person's, at another life. Just much like a mother would not be able to hit or kill a child right when it's out because it's considered a life. They should not be able to choose to get rid of it for whatever reason, inconvenience, or because they can't afford it. It is a life and it needs to be protected, and that's one of the reasons that the law was passed. The legalization of abortion has given women the right to commit murder, the killing of an unborn child. Abortion is not ethical, and abortion is not right. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to speed this up a little bit, and we're going to make it really interesting. We're going to have our rebuttals. We're going to have the pathos, rebut the pathos, the legos, rebut the legos, and also the ethos of the ethos. We have heard emotional arguments, logical arguments, and credible arguments. So at this time, I'd like to have Lamar. Please stand, Lamar. I'd like to have Alex. Please stand. Let's rebut.
All right, now, according to my counterpart's story, the 17-year-old teen has family to help for the child's upbringing. There are a lot of women who do not have the luxury of their parents raising their offspring. We're not arguing the fact against adoption. That is a choice that we believe is a choice. What is a problem that I'd like to argue is how are you going to restrict a person from, how could you place restrictions on how a woman only has the option of birth regardless of any situation? That is, what was that? Sorry. That is the only problem that we have is people have choices and make choices every day, so why shouldn't this be a choice of one?
Come on, Alex.
Alrighty. To rebut my counterpart's story, it stated that it was illegal in her country, but she still went about and had that process, and if she didn't, she thought she would kill herself. There are many stages, and different women go through different hormones and different thoughts, and there's different approaches she can have if she went through with keeping the baby and giving birth or giving for adoption. There's counseling, and there's different ways to help you get through that situation she faced. Not necessarily giving it up and getting rid of it, just raising it on her own or giving it for adoption. There are different options she had, different choices. And to close, she should give life a chance because her parents gave her that right.
Thank you, gentlemen. Claudia. Charles. They're going to do the logos. This is our logical arguments.
Okay, so we heard from Charles. He gave the definition, and he said, and I quote, the definition for first-degree murder. In most states, first-degree murder is defined as an unlawful, and I underline that. Killing is unlawful killing that is both willful and premeditated, meaning that it was committed after planning or lying in wait for the victim. This definition does not apply to abortion. Why? Abortion is legal. Therefore, it's not unlawful. It's lawful. The other quote, and I quote, "One who intentionally and voluntarily participates with another in crime, underlying crime, by encouraging or assisting in the commission of the crime, or by failing to prevent it, though under a duty to do so." Again, this quote does not apply to abortion, because abortion is legal. Therefore, there's no crime being committed. He also, I believe, referred to Planned Parenthood. Very good research, good information, which goes to what I said. The Planned Parenthood, yes, they do abortion, and it's 3% of all the other things that they do. If it wasn't for Planned Parenthood, we're saying that there's a lot of abortions. It would be more. Why? Because Planned Parenthood not only does abortions, they also do, they provide health care, they deliver vital reproductive health care, sex education, information to millions of people, not only in the United States, worldwide. See, the other argument or statement, he gave the description of the abortion practice according to abortion methods, and I'm going to reiterate it. Anesthesia is given to the mother, and her cervix is quickly dilated. Then a suction curette is inserted into the womb to tear the fetus and placenta into a small into placenta, and it's cut up into pieces and then sucked by a very powerful vacuum. That is true. I'm not going to say that. It's true. But just imagine if abortion was to become illegal, this procedure would be gone. Some women who need to or choose to have an abortion or end their pregnancy, they will revert to clandestine abortion practices, such as breaking the amniotic sac inside the womb with a sharp object or wire like a cloth hanger, which can result in infection and injury to internal organs, such as puncturing of the intestines, which can result in death. They can also use another method, such as pumping toxic mixtures, such as chili, pepper, and chemicals like alum permanganate or plant poison into the body of the woman, causing her to go into toxic shock and die. Bottom line, if abortion is legal, they just leave it up to the woman to make that choice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. All right, so Claudia brought up a lot of the information I'd shared with you before. I'm going to go ahead and reply to her original claim on this subject. To say that criminalization of abortion is wrong because women will seek it via back alley abortions because of social and psychological issues is still not a valid reason. The American Psychological Association had this to say on studies of abortions and the mental side effects of those abortions. In its report, the APA said, many studies do not adequately control for other variables known to be associated with psychological well-being, including poverty, prior exposure to violence, and a history of mental health problems or substance abuse. Failure to parse out the effects of these co-occurring risk factors, the APA explains, can lead to reports of associations between mental health and abortion history that are misleading. There is no clear definition on the mental side effects of women who kept their babies. Furthermore, there is no clear definition on any of the ones who got an abortion, that aborted their babies. Thanks.
Thank you. And now we're going to conclude with Carol Charito.
So, here's what I have to say. So I understand and respect the feeling in regards to not to terminate a pregnancy. more so because most circumstances, people are in a better situation than others, okay? So here are my thoughts. Us women were given a chance to vote and have equal rights in the United States. There was a time when one income in a household was okay, and women would choose to stay home and raise up a child. In today's day, you can't do that. Most likely you need 2 incomes in order to raise a child at home. And there's times that there's also a successful woman that decides to leave their families at home, work, and their fathers choose to stay home and raise up their children. But who better yet to raise up their kids? Another situation that I have is, another thought that I may say here is, there are some circumstances that we do live in a country where we're constantly being humiliated and we are ridiculed. Like, for instance, if a child is brought into this world and they just happen to be sick or ill, the chances are that they're going to be humiliated, ridiculed at school, and parents have to take that burden because a child does not know best. That's why a lot of times people terminate their pregnancies because they know that for health reasons they have to do so. Another thing is, in another situation is, if it's not right to kill a child, then why is it right to have a choice of DNRs? Also, euthanize a person, a patient, or also a prisoner, or kill anybody altogether. So that's my part. Sorry.
My rebuttal with my counter-argument would be that you referenced the Constitution and that it was said that individuals have a right to privacy, but the Constitution does not say the right to privacy. It's actually, the judges interpret it as being implied in the Constitution, and in that it's a kind of slippery slope how they interpreted it, saying that, okay, well, since it is your right to have your right to privacy, which was basically right to privacy from unlawful searches or unlawful seizures of property and stuff like that. And that's what really was aimed for. But by them interpreting it, saying that, okay, well, because of that, then women has the right to do whatever they want with their own bodies. It could be, well, women can have, do marijuana, they can do, whatever it is they want with their body. But we can't. There are rules that help protect human life. And one of the rules were that there are rules that protect fetuses from fertilization to birth. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies. Well, in our conclusion, does a woman have the right to have an abortion? You have heard arguments on both sides. You heard the pro-choice argument. You heard the pro-life arguments. We have approached it from the ethos, the logos, and also the pathos. You've heard credible evidence. You have heard emotional evidence, and as well as that you have heard facts. It's your decision. It's your decision to decide. Should a woman have an abortion? And I'd like to close by thanking each and every one of our team members here. We'd like to thank you guys. Give me a hand. And at this time, we'll pass it to the instructor and see if you have any questions or any comments. Thank you.
I want to compliment your team on putting together an excellent presentation. I love your organization, and I love your content. Because organization, in the sense that it became very clear the different arguments that each person was putting forward. I like the ethos, pathos, and Legos format, as well as having the people, the two different people on each side present those individually. Content was extremely good. I just want to point out a couple of them, but every one of you was extremely good. I thought the Legos that Claudia talked about, you actually quoted, no, I'm sorry, Ethos, it was Carolyn, I'm sorry.
That's me.
Yeah, that's you. Quoting, going to the Supreme Court to as an authoritative figure, because while they promote their own logic, the main thing the Supreme Court has is that it's the ultimate decision maker in our country that interprets the laws that have been passed, and their ability to interpret those laws make them ethos, make them the most credible source of information that we can have, because from credible sources we can have studies, we can have emotional appeal, but equally important, we can have a statement by a highly respected group, which is the Supreme Court. So I really appreciated you're doing the research enough to get into Roe versus Wade and give us the arguments that they had. The rebuttals I thought were very good, because that's one of the things I was very concerned about when we started this, because when you do a rebuttal, as we actually saw when we were watching the presidential debates, the person who's on the other side is sitting there furiously making notes, trying to come up with the argument on the fly to counter what that person is saying. You had a chance to prepare it, and you did a real good job of it. Sometimes I'm afraid when we do this exercise that by preparing your rebuttal, the pro side of the con says, "Oh, I better add something like to knock that down before he even comes around." But you did a great example of being able to put your arguments forward and then rebut each argument, especially like the pathos arguments. In other words, the fact that you have a case history that illustrates a point in a very powerful and emotional sense, and both sides did a very good job of that. Anyway, my compliments. Very well done. Brian, thanks. Thank you all. By the way, I do want to mention, just overall, what we had tonight, at least for me as an instructor, was very satisfying, because, as I say, we've had 5 weeks together trying to demonstrate searching for the truth. And each team has done an extremely good job of picking that concept up.